I'm going to ask you guys to spend the next 8 minutes thinking about something that's very dear to you and is dear to me, your time. I want to start to give you a little history. This is my dad and my grandfather, and I'm a third-generation company man. I was born with the idea that if I showed up and I worked for my manager and I did good work for my company, it would all work out, I'd get a pension, and that's what my dad and my grandfather are doing to this day. My world was a little different. I've had a new job every year and a half. I'm in technology. I've had over 25 managers I've been through. I last count over 8 reorgs throughout my career. There was no stability. So this thing that I was promised by my dad and my grandfather, this stability, this show up and do good work for the company, is something that I've really struggled with throughout my career. I still remember it was a Saturday. I was a chief of staff, and we were working on a presentation for the board of directors at Microsoft. And I just had my second daughter. And there I was working on a PowerPoint presentation while my wife is in the back taking care of my daughter. And I hadn't spent time with the family. I'd put that first and foremost. I mean, it's a board of directors and important. And something switched in my mind. Something was wrong. Something was broken. My priorities were out of whack. I was making choices that weren't in line with my values or where I wanted to go. And so I remember in the back of my head, a friend of mine who had a startup, he said, "Hey, Paul, you should go and get a virtual assistant." So that sounds like a really interesting idea. So I went online, I took a break, and I got a virtual assistant. And I asked that person, I said, "Hey, tomorrow I want to take my family. I have these daughters, this wife, within 5 miles of my house over in Bellevue. Let me know what I can do." Because I didn't have time to search the web. I knew that would take a lot of time. 5 minutes later, an answer came back, and there was a strawberry festival 4 blocks from my house I didn't know. These are pictures from that day that I spent with my daughters. The day before, I was working on PowerPoint presentations all day. To me, that was a very precious moment, and in that moment, I started to believe that all things would be different. Not only how I lived, but how I worked. We talked about I'm writing a book, I've got a podcast, I've got a full-time job, my wife works at Microsoft, and we're both extremely busy. But is there a way to change everything, to rethink the way you work and rethink the way you live, to have time to both follow your passion and raise a family, or do those things like Tim was saying, volunteer in those things as well? And I started to believe there was. It's something I call the gig mindset. I use Upwork, Fiverr, and a number of these different expert services for everything I do. This morning I hired a number of people through Fancy Hands. These pants were made by M. Taylor, so I can go and there's algorithmically generated pants. My stylist from Stitch Fix gave me my shirt. And so all things, and everybody's familiar with Line Bike, Uber, and Lyft, and there are no scooters here in Seattle. But it forced me to go and understand how to rewire everything I do. I don't search the web anymore. I literally go to Fancy Hands every morning, put in 5 tasks, get those tasks at lunch, and they process by the end of the day. For me, that moment was like the first time I got a red envelope and didn't have to go back to Blockbuster to pay late fees. Or Matt, who's a friend of mine who's here as a millennial, you had to pay to rewind the tapes. I don't remember that. It was like the first time I got an iPhone and I realized that the internet was in my pocket. Or the first time my wife and I walked out here in Seattle, just downtown, and there was a black car with water that said, "Your Uber's here to pick you up." We don't remember that those moments were transformative, but they were. And for me, that was the same. It was like the first time I looked at Alexa and I debated with my daughter of whether I could listen to Dave Matthews or Frozen. We listen to Frozen. When I talk about the gig mindset, we talk about the inclination for people and organizations, both people and organizations, to use on-demand expert intelligence to reclaim time, drive innovation, and rethink what's possible. When I talk about people, I want to tell you about Ken. Ken's a video editor on my team. And at the height of Ken's career in making videos, he's very proud, he's a perfectionist, he was making 1 video a week. I came in, I completely transformed our team into using experts and using freelancers. Ken was an individual contributor and is now managing a team of 25 freelancers in the US and around the world, and in his best month now, produced 47 videos. Ken went from a place in his career where he felt stuck and he was doing 1 video to a place where he's managing team. Ken came up to me about 3 months ago and said, "Paul, you can get rid of me. I'll just go start my own agency." That safety, that belief in believing in what he could do and rethinking what's possible now gives him the ability to provide value to not only himself, to our team, and to our customers. There's 3 things that people are learning with the gig mindset that are critical, that we all need to learn. Systems thinking. If you don't think that the world is becoming distributed as far as talent, think about the world as far as automation and technology. It's going to be more important than ever to think about systems to deliver your mission. A modern network of doers. Tonight is a wonderful event. We'll all network and get to know each other. But if I look at my 30-person freelance network, those are all people that I can rely on to go and do very specific expert tasks, whether it's writing, whether it's videos, whether it's these slides, all sorts of things. And so I've built a network around me, not of only the people on my team, but a global network of doers. And the third thing, like I said, is leadership at every level. Ken was an individual contributor, and now he's managing a team and getting leadership skills that not only make him safe, keep him relevant. And so that way of working is giving him new skills that are critical. Now let me talk about organizations. A lot of executives ask me, and this is actually a slide for one of my presentations, is there any signal? I have this gig economy thing. I know about Uber, and I know people are riding scooters, but is it real? 2 weeks ago, one of our partners, Upwork, just filed for an IPO. They're doing about $1.7 billion of top-line revenue, and 30% of the Fortune 500 companies are using freelancers on that platform. Everybody's familiar here with Amazon. They have a home service marketplace, Amazon Flex, for last-mile delivery. And they just invested in a company that allows you to talk to Alexa and or route you to humans that are in the healthcare industry. WeWork is New York's largest tenant. Independent work, WeWork is New York's largest tenant, and New York's a big place. And also, IKEA has acquired TaskRabbit, and ADP, which is a large payment firm, acquired a company called WorkMarket. This is always interesting to me no matter what business you're in. When we talk about the last mile, the one thing that Uber did to all of us is it says, I expect to be able to press a button and have a guaranteed successful outcome. I expect to walk outside, press a button, and you bring me home safely. That's not only in transportation. This is out of a Business Insider article. And one of the reasons that people were choosing IKEA over was Target was because IKEA took that last mile. They did that last moment thing of assembling your furniture, and that's going to be what makes the difference moving forward. Putting together your core business along with other on-demand and last-mile services. This is from a growth mindset exercise we did with my team. And this is the biggest challenge I have in letting people know about this idea, a world full of experts that can help you reclaim time, where you can actually reskill and do amazing things. But this is how we always did it. And I've watched people go through this journey. I've watched them go from resistance to this thing is scary. I've watched them start retraining themselves. And I've watched them actually become advocates of this way of work. If you ask anyone on my team, they'll never go back to the way we used to work. I only ask one thing. I ask that you leave tonight and think about how you can reclaim your time to focus on the things that you really care about. There's no reason to go dial it in and do things at work that don't add value to you or to your company. I ask you to think about what you can do for your team. We all have a responsibility to the people we work with and the people we manage. And lastly, I ask, what can you do to help your company evolve? The future will belong to those who realize that the world is changing and take advantage of that change. Thank you very much for your time.